Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. Thank you for joining us today. Are you someone who likes to work out? Or maybe you're someone who's a little bit more sedentary. Today we're going to be talking about functional workouts with Jessica Lewis, the founder of Sculpt Your Life. Jessica, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate it.
So, for the sake of our viewers, can you give us a little bit of background about how you came to be a personal trainer, how you came to found Sculpt Your Life, and what your journey's been like?
Well, many people are surprised by the fact that my story is a lot more similar to theirs than they would expect. I actually began life as a pretty big girl. I was an art major in college, so I kind of specialized in sitting for protracted periods of time and using as few muscles as possible to do my work. And in probably my mid-teens, I developed a long-standing habit of using food as a mechanism of stress release. So you can imagine that I had a real weight roller coaster thing going on for a long, long time. And my daughter was born in my early 30s, and by the time I was about, I want to say about 34, my husband was becoming fully disabled. I mean, we all knew it. It was a big deal, but it was coming, kind of like a freight train. And really the weight of the world was kind of resting on my shoulders. And one night, and my weight really ballooned at that point. I think I topped the scales at about 265. One night when my daughter was about 1, I got so lightheaded that I passed out for a couple of minutes. I had developed hypoglycemia, irritable bowel. I mean, I was really not well. And I was only out for a couple of seconds, but it was just long enough to get the message that something had to shift. And the very next day, this is the weirdest coincidence of all, I met a personal trainer who came to people's homes, and I hired her. So my first little step in the journey towards becoming a trainer was to simply begin to move for the first time in my life. And my body was so shocked by that the weight kind of really fell off me pretty quickly. In the first year or so, I shed about, I want to say about 60 pounds. But it was many more years before I decided I wanted to do this for a living. But it certainly was as a direct result of my own experience, which is very similar to what most people are dealing with today.
So when you walk a client through a situation, it's because, I mean, you know firsthand what they're experiencing, and you're able to guide them through the emotional part of it and through the physical part of it.
Absolutely, yeah. There are 2 other aspects to my work. I also do nutritional counseling and Tai Chi moving meditation, and they all completely dovetail together. I like to use the food analogy. It's like a bowl of spaghetti. You can't really tell where one strand begins and ends. They're completely intertwined. Which is one of the things that sets me apart from other fitness experts.
Everybody talks about wanting to be fit these days, but what does that really mean? What does that look like?
Fit is a funny word. It's kind of like the word natural. If you look it up in the dictionary, you really won't find a definition. But if you Google it, you'll probably get about 1,000 hits, and they'll all say something like, doing all the things you love with vigor and without pain until the day you die. So what that basically means is being able to move and be active until you're very, very old. If you look at our culture today, though, we've sort of quirked that concept into something very, very different. Like, just because somebody can run a marathon doesn't mean they're never going to pull a muscle or break a bone. Or just because somebody is really muscle bound doesn't necessarily mean they can bend over and touch their toes. In many ways, we've come to a place in the world where fitness and health are kind of parting ways. It's kind of a dangerous situation.
So you take a different approach than some trainers who are really maybe more appearance-based, and you're talking about functional movement and functional fitness. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means to you?
Absolutely. And again, just like my path towards being a personal trainer, a lot of this happened over the course of years dealing with injuries. I have a martial arts background. I stopped practicing karate when I was just shy of my 2nd-degree black belt, and my hip was so messed up I almost couldn't walk. So functional fitness is really, really different from what you're going to see in the gym most of the time. I mean, if you think about it, how often do you find yourself strapped into a chair during the day, you know, just lifting and lowering one leg? It's very, very rare that that happens. What you really need to do is pick up something heavy and put it up on the shelf without hurting your back, or grab your kid and run. And gym workouts are often really boring, again, because they're almost irrelevant in a lot of ways. I mean, the only exercise that someone will ever do is what they enjoy. That sounds mind-blowing. So, I mean, if you really like Zumba, you should go to Zumba class. But it's also true that in a big group setting, the instructor can never keep her eyes on everybody at once. So she's most likely going to miss if you're doing something really differently from the rest of the class, and you could get hurt. So functional fitness is all about using the biggest joints, the most important joints in your body, the biggest muscles, in a systematic, coordinated, holistic way, so that they fire off sequentially the way they're supposed to fire off. So all of my workouts are based on those big all-over body movements with as little equipment as possible, because no matter where you go, you have your body, but you don't always have your little pink dumbbells, and you certainly don't have your universal gym.
So not everybody knows, you know, what this sequence is that your muscles are supposed to fire in, or what your posture is supposed to look like. So this is part of your program, is teaching them those things.
Absolutely.
So that they're doing it the right way.
Absolutely.
How important is it that we have the right posture, that we have the right movements in our daily life?
It's really important, because what a lot of people don't understand, and I say it all the time, but it's really true, our bodies are like little ecosystems. We're not machines. And everything in our body works together like the big bowl of spaghetti, you know? What often happens is we'll have a joint. Let's say your ankle is incapable of running through a full range of motion, so the knee will try to pick up the load. And then you'll end up with a knee problem and wonder, why is my knee bothering me, when in fact it was your ankle that wasn't doing its job. There's only actually 7 movement patterns that the human body can make. There's a lower body squatting pattern, a lower body lunging pattern, there's an upper body pushing pattern, a pulling pattern, there's bending, twisting, and then gait. And all of the movements that we make are just variations of the big 7, they call them pillars of human movement. So again, when I'm working with a client, I need to first identify whether or not they have some imbalances or asymmetries, and try to unlock those or work with those before we go into any kind of customized workout routine.
How frequently do you see people who have those imbalances, or who have injuries from previous activities that they've been doing, whether it was a workout or just something in their daily life?
All the time.
All the time. So it's very common for people.
All the time. Because we're born almost perfect. Well, maybe we are perfect. We're born perfect in every way. And if you think about the way babies discover and explore their world, they're so much more fluid. I mean, even when they're just learning to crawl, they have to move their entire body so that they find out how they can flip over and move forward. And we just stop doing those things as we age. We also sit so much. Our bodies are just not meant to sit. That's actually incredibly stressful. So it doesn't take much at all for somebody to be incredibly imbalanced, especially in this day and age where we've turned fitness into such a competitive issue. You'll find a lot of times that somebody is just bound and determined to run as many marathons as they possibly can, and they're actually pounding their joints right into the ground. They have horrible repetitive motion conditions, and you know, walk like a very old man at the age of 30. All the time I work with people that have injuries and asymmetries and imbalances.
Now, if somebody were interested in doing those sorts of things, would learning functional movements help them alleviate some of the issues? Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about you mentioned stress. The stress on the body, we don't really think of that. I mean, obviously working out is applying a form of stress to our muscles, correct? But you can do it in the wrong way, or you can do it in the right way.
Absolutely.
And you're trying to teach people to do it in the right way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fitness is an amazing thing. It not only restores balance and posture, it gives strength, but it also actually increases all the feel-good neurotransmitters in your brain. So it can definitely alleviate stress in all different ways that most people don't even think about. And our daily lives are incredibly stressful. I already mentioned sitting. I mean, it only takes about 20 minutes in a particular position for the body to begin what's known as creep. So the upper back muscles elongate and the yes, exactly. The chest kind of draws down, and if you think about it, that inhibits you from being able to breathe properly. The S curve in your low back flattens out, and if you're sitting on your biggest muscle groups, those muscle fibers over time actually begin to disappear.
Oh.
So real life can be excessively stressful. And then there's also the emotional stressors of real life as well. We actually, in this country right now, we're living in almost a perfect storm of physical and emotional stressors. So fitness is one of the keys to a healthy, happy life. One of the keys.
One of the keys. And this functional movement, while people are doing this, does it also help alleviate that mental stress, that emotional stress, because it's more of a calming activity?
It's a combination of things. You're kicking out a lot more serotonin, which also happens when you eat chocolate or take cocaine. Or fall in love. Or fall in love, you know. That's a really important neurotransmitter. But you're also alleviating the stress of sitting and all these other things that really get under our skin. And you're also moving some of the toxins that we take in over the course of the day through our sweat. That's one of the ways that we get stuff out of our systems is to sweat and then jump in the shower, wash it right off. So it's a great way to enhance your health as well just from a physical aspect.
Now, suppose someone is not flexible. You know, they have maybe no fitness background, nothing like that. Is functional movement something that they're still going to be able to do?
Absolutely. I often use a tool called the functional movement screen to help vet out any kind of really big imbalance or asymmetry, and then really work with the client to help open up those areas. That sometimes I give them homework before we actually begin to do our work, our routines together. Also, before I do any kind of routine with a client, I put them through a full warm-up that includes something called self-myofascial release. That's basically rolling yourself on a foam roller that helps break up adhesions in the fascia and knots, and it's almost like a massage with no fingers. And then I put them through what I call a dynamic warm-up and a whole bunch of mobility correctives, and just to open up all the different areas so that if they're not inherently flexible or if they're dealing with an injury, they can certainly increase their flexibility before we do anything else. And they can do that throughout the week all by themselves. In fact, I think there's a lot of evidence to support doing that kind of work 1 day a week for every decade you've been alive. So, you know, you got somebody in their 50s or 60s or 70s, they should at least be doing that once a day, if nothing else.
Really? One day a week for every decade you've been alive. I've never heard that. That's very interesting. But so when you started, you didn't have any background in this. So, you know, most people would say you're already well into your life at that point, and you were able to make all that progress.
It's never too late. It is never too late. Our bodies definitely age. As we age, our bodies age. But the funniest thing about muscles is, although if you don't use your muscles, the fibers actually do disappear. But the fibers that remain are just as trainable the day you die as they were the day you were born. So you can always train whatever muscle fiber is there. You can also reverse certain conditions like osteoporosis simply through exercise. So there's a lot that can be done no matter where you are. It's easier when you're younger. And in my case, it was like 20 years ago, but I was in my 30s when I lost a lot of weight. So I hadn't lost a lot of collagen. I do have a lot of hanging skin, but it's not as bad as some people. But you can always improve your level of fitness. It's never too late.
Jessica, I wish we had all day to talk about this because I think it's fascinating, but we're out of time for today. But thank you for coming in to share with us.
Thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time on Join Our Town.